So tell me how you took all of this customer data, structured and unstructured. And I love how you talked about, you even said you got to go out and meet with the people, right? Because actually, in an organization, 90% of data is unstructured. It's the number one form of data that isn't connected to our AI tools, that isn't being analyzed and the trends and the patterns and things. And that's where a lot of the real insight comes in. Call transcript, that you're talking about, things like that. Interviews, as CMOs, when we take on a new role, what is the first thing we do? We start talking to customers and we say, hey, this isn't a sales conversation. I'm just here to learn, right? You get some or customer advisory board transcripts. I mean, some of the most important data that we have is unstructured. So you brought that all together. But tell us kind of some of the results that you're getting, and then we'll kind of backtrack in how you got there.
So like I said, first point was like going to all these different sources and then doing primary research. So I have always been a true believer in doing your own research, getting your own data set, and you end up being able to use that, also in marketing. Like you can create assets from it. So it's not only helping you understand how better to go to market, but from all that, we created, I call an integrated campaign. And really simply, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a synchronized marketing and sales framework that builds a narrative that aligns to the buyer journey around a specific theme that aligns with what customers are trying to do. And while that sounds really fundamental, I can't tell you, I think every time I've entered a company, I have moved marketing and then, the sales plays that go with that to this construct. And there's a whole integrated calendar and, editorial thing that goes with it. But at the end of the day, it's like creating that framework for integrated campaigns. Because what people want to do, even if they are super customer savvy, is they go back to wanting to go to market the way they're organized as a company. So by B, which then means doing it by product. And it happens over and over again. And a lot of you out there, I know, are nodding your head because it can't be that I've worked for 6 companies that are the only ones in the world that do this, because I've talked to so many leaders that are, and it's not revolutionary, but it does take a culture shift because there's so much pride in your products and we all fall in love with technology. The only reason we're in B2B tech is because we want to lift up that hood and go, oh my God, that engine just makes me so happy. And so you want to yell to the world, but we all know nobody buys products, right? And then add to it, we are an open source software company. So everything we do is in that open source development model. And no one thinks, in the morning, I'm going to go buy open source software, which is almost like an oxymoron, right? But that is a very common model that we now see because the greatest innovation comes in open source communities. So if they don't want to buy a product and they definitely don't understand why they want to buy open source, then obviously leading with those things is not what you want to do when you're talking to a customer. You want to understand, what is keeping you up at night? How do I make life easier for you? How do I solve a big problem? And do I bring in partners? Do I show you how I integrate well and play nice with others, right? That's what they want to hear. And you're right. They've already done all that research beforehand, which means then you've really got to address that pain in everything that you're doing in content. So first it's taking those and you create 3 or 4 buckets. I don't know what it is. There's always 3 legs of a stool. Sometimes it ends up being 4, depending on how big your portfolio is. But in this case, the thing I've learned over time is that you always want to have what I call the enduring brand campaign. So there's kind of this always on heartbeat that is a little bit above all of those pain points or customer challenge campaigns. And normally that happens around the emotion, like at the highest level. And the thing, and I'm just going to read this because I have this underneath that campaign. It says, I feel trapped at a loss of control, which was something I was just hearing again and again in all of the data and things that we were seeing. I need to do everything from cut costs to implement AI without compromising customer experience, security, or reliability. So every IT leader is on this balance beam, right? And at the end of the day, especially with AI and cybersecurity and costs, they feel like they are losing control. And by the way, it was interesting because the company I was at previously, which was Chronosphere, it was an observability company acquired by Palo Alto Networks. We heard the same thing. It was about a loss of control. My telemetry data is out of control. My cost of observability have now surpassed AWS. And so this feeling of control, at first it kind of surprised me. I'm like, wait, what's happening? But then I realized, oh my gosh, this is a bigger issue than observability. Like this feeling like I'm stuck, I'm trapped in these black boxes of vendor contracts, these proprietary solutions. I can't get out, I can't move out, I can't do whatever I want to do, I can't modernize as fast as I want to this feeling of like I don't have control of the situation. That is the worst feeling in the world if you think about it. So that was kind of this choice campaign, which is customers want choice, they want flexibility, they want increased control. So think of that at the highest level. And then underneath it was, how do I improve operational efficiency and cost, which never goes away, by the way. That's been the 25 years I've been in IT. Our budgets are cut. We have to do more with less. We have to, do something different with everything we've got. We need to modernize our workloads, right? We're continuing to figure out how to improve our modernization play across hybrid cloud or whatever environment. We have to manage and secure everything we're doing, all the workloads we're doing across that hybrid cloud, right? So there's huge security management pain. And then the newer one is we always have to innovate, right? And now it's more around AI and edge are the terms, in our world that really come up because things are becoming out to the furthest and furthest edge, sensors, the tiniest things, and then AI is on everyone. So those were the four kind of pain-based things. And I always find I'm using verbs, like I need to innovate, I've got to optimize. And these are words that came up, right? And those are where we always will do a qualitative part of the research before the quantitative too. So I missed that. So aggregate all this data, everything you've got, unstructured, structured data. Now we use AI to say, okay, what are the themes? What are the words? What are the pain points, right? We go out and we do interviews, with a subset of our customer base and have them just talk freely. You then use those two inputs for quantitative to get data sets around that. So you can say 85% of people are now taking a hybrid cloud approach. This many people are staying on-prem. This much of workloads are containerized today, right? What is the trend around that? Whatever it is. And so then as you go to market, those campaigns, you're leading with that customer message. You have customer stories that validate that, right? And you have data from those customer stories. This customer reduced costs by 65% by doing this solution, right? You work with partners, so you bring them into it, right? Because it's not just your product, it's always solutions that are being brought together. So all of that works together. And then eventually it does go to products, right? Because they do have to buy a SKU. So you do want your field to know, what is that lead product? And marketing does need to show data to the business units and to engineering. We driving demand and revenue for your product. So you still have to have that association. And the thing that I've always done that I think works well is for each of those campaigns, you have what I call a lead or land product and a lead or land service. One of the things I've noticed is if you have services, as part of your portfolio, they often get missed in that sale. And data will show, you've probably seen this, is that first of all, people love to buy services because it makes the deployment more successful, or it helps narrow down what that implementation is going to be, right? So it's either or after or both. And so how you think about, like, for example, for the modernized campaign, our lead product is SUSE virtualization, because the number one pain right now is around, frankly, getting off VMware or other virtualization legacy solutions. Like people just need to move to the future. They want to get to containers. They may need to keep things on hypervisors, but they're trying to move that forward. And we have something called virtualization test drive or a kickstart. So those are our lead product and services, right? Then you've got things that follow that you can pivot to, or maybe it's an upsell, or cross sell later. So it all works together, and it's not going to be perfectly linear, but it kind of gives you this map and discovery landscape of how you can have the conversation.